So thank you everyone for joining the second knowledge exchange event of ARI this year. Today we'll talk about settlement services across Ontario and like online and in-person services. So on the agenda today, I will give a bit of background about ARI program and our work, and I will share also some resources with you, and we will present the key speakers, and after that I will close the presentation.
اسأل وين الأولاد؟ وين التسجيل؟ الجلسة الحين أنا قاعدة أحضر الإجازة. تكلمت على دين أول مرة اسمه.
I'll put them on you.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. So we will hear from our key speakers, and I will introduce them in a second. But first, I will do the presentation, and yeah, we will have like time to hear from our key speakers, and then time for open discussion and Q&A. About ARI, Allies in Refugee Integration program began in 2018 in partnership with Refugee 613. We saw that the settlement professionals and sponsors are natural allies with a common goal of providing the best possible support for sponsored refugees. But there are always issues in communication, gaps in collaboration, and challenges. So through the research, we got to understand that better and implemented some pilot ideas that were some of them were very successful. The pilot ideas that we tried were the intentional connections, and where we connect sponsors and SaaS to settlement agencies to work more routinely together and form a partnership. And of course the knowledge exchange events, which are a series of online events that we do to continue to share the experience and check in together as settlement and sponsorship communities. This program was concluded in 2021, and building on that, ARI 2 started in 21 and until 2025, with the focus of focusing on two main activities: the knowledge exchange and the ambassador agencies, that both build on the previous pilot ideas that we worked on. The knowledge exchange events are a series of virtual webinars and roundtables that aim to create a virtual space and cultivate a conversation between the sponsorship and settlement communities, and where they can like routinely come together and share information, identify the challenges and solutions, and build understanding on the settlement sponsor collaboration in Ontario. The ambassador agency's activity is basically ARI will help SaaS and settlement agencies who would like to partner together to do so and to implement elements from our best practices and continue to work together. So this is done through an official partnership where they plan and implement that activity together with the aim of improving the support to arriving PSRs. So about that, we're still looking for interested settlement agencies and sponsorship agreement holder agencies that would like to partner and work together to implement an activity, and we would support that. So if you are interested, please contact me, and I will help you with that. Before we start the webinar today, I would also like to share some very useful resources. The first one is an upcoming training by RSTP, the Refugee Sponsorship Training Program. The training is organized as a two-part training series, and it's directed to both settlement workers and sponsors. On how to more effectively support the privately sponsored refugees. I will copy the information, the registration information in the chat box for everyone. Yep. So you can register online if you're interested. There are 2 sessions in September and 2 sessions in October. The other resource I would like to share is the Settlement Support Connection Team, which is a new project funded by the IRCC and implemented by the RSTP. And basically, you can, as private sponsors or SAs, you can connect with the Settlement Support Connection Team, and they will contact you back, and they will help you connect with a settlement worker, and we'll continue to follow up with you on that. For more information on that, you can get the information here. I'll also copy this information in the chat box. So that's everything. Let's talk about the webinar today. So in today's webinar, we're examining the current status of the settlement services across Ontario, particularly in rural communities and smaller urban communities, and how these services are being delivered online and in person, and how that affects the service delivery, particularly as we navigate our way through the pandemic. And after, we wanted to highlight those changes and how service providers adapted to online environments, again, both in rural and urban communities. So we will listen from settlement agencies in urban centers like Toronto, where they provide online services to that extend further than Toronto area. And we will also listen from service providers who continue to provide services in person in rural communities. And we will see, basically, we're trying to create that dialogue and help each other share information and best practices. So without further ado, I am happy to welcome our key speakers who are here with me today. Martha Jennings, who's the Community Outreach Manager from the 519 in Toronto. I spotlighted Martha. And David Demos, who's also a program manager in Jumpstart Refugee Talent. Just give me a second and I will. Yep, here. And we also have Olivia Bresigneau, and I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, who is the Chief Executive Officer at the Windsor Women Working with Immigrant Women, W5, from Windsor. Hi, Olivia. And here's a spotlight. And also Baha Habra, who's a settlement worker from YMCA of Northeastern Ontario. And he's joining us from Sudbury today. So welcome, Baha, and welcome everyone. Also, additionally, we will hear from Teresa Polyakov, who is my colleague at OCASI, and she's the coordinator of settlement.org. And she will share some information and knowledge with us about settlement.org and other similar settlement service finders and tools online that we can benefit from. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. And I will ask everyone again to stay on mute. And if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box. So just let me turn off the, yep. So I'll start with the questions, and first, I would like to hear from each of the key speakers about their work, about their services and organization. So Martha, if you could start by giving us some background about the 519 and the work you've been doing. Thank you.
Sure thing, Evan. Thank you. So my name is Martha Singh Jennings, and I'm the manager of community engagement at the 519 Community Centre. We are a City of Toronto agency and also a charity, which means we have the luxury of infrastructure funding and the flexibility of grant writing and donations funding, which means we can provide really responsive programming to our community. We specifically serve 2S LGBTQ+ folks in Toronto and throughout Southern Ontario, and also the people who are geographically close to us in the downtown east of Toronto. The 519 is a really large organisation, and we provide programming of all different kinds, most of which is intended to serve the needs of particularly marginalised individuals within the 2S LGBTQ community. And of course, we have a sizable settlement team as well. The settlement team specifically provides one-to-one settlement services, so things like settlement planning, ongoing advice and guidance, referrals to other services and programs to meet need. That could be internal and external referrals, and also help with things like completing forms, for example, renewing work permits, making permanent residency applications, those sorts of things. In addition to that, we also provide a broad range of programming for refugees and newcomers, some of which is specifically targeted towards refugee claimants. So we have twice monthly large group for refugee claimants that is hybrid, so people can attend in person or they can attend online. Of course, we can't provide food to those who attend online, but we have food, a hot meal for everybody who comes in person. And those sessions are sometimes informative, often about the refugee claims process, and sometimes more like kind of social and community building focus. So things like speed friending and learning about like consent and pleasure when starting new relationships, things like that. The claimant focus programming also includes about weekly sports and activities session that is intended to help folks build community and make new friends. And then we have lots of other programming that's not specifically targeted towards claimants, and that includes the Queer Muslim Community Circle, which is a virtual group, Henna Hangs, which is a social space, which is not hybrid, but happens either in person or online, so it alternates between the two options. We have a monthly Black men, wellbeing and wellness and health webinar, Black youth gathering, which is in person, English conversation circles, citizenship study groups, lots of different things, some of which is intended to be informative and skills based, like we have employment access programming, and some of which is intended to be much more kind of like well-being, community connections, meeting friends, building networks, that is very, very important for all newcomers, but particularly important for 2S LGBTQ newcomers who very, very often arrive by themselves and also frequently don't feel able to access the support of their diaspora community due to perceived like risk of persecution and discrimination from people who share their cultural identity. So that's a reasonably brief explanation, and we have, as I said, we have all kinds of stuff happening within the 519 outside of newcomer programming, including an access to justice department, a food securities team, a children and families team, trans focused programming, older adults focused programming, and more. Nice to see you all.
Thank you so much, Martha. We will talk about what you provide more, but yeah, that was a great summary. And I would like to also hear from Daweed, if you can give us also a background about the employment programs that you have. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. So my name is David Damos. I'm the program manager at Jumpstart Refugee Talent on the client relations department. I used to work for RSTP, and I see a lot of RSTP colleagues, former colleagues here. Hi to everyone. I was also part of the advisory committee for ARI a couple of years ago. So good to see everyone and all the incredible work you're doing. So Jumpstart Refugee Talent is a refugee-led nonprofit organization. It was founded in 2016 by 4 very passionate volunteers. And now in 2022, it's an organization of over 20 employees. And we focus on supporting newcomer refugees with finding meaningful employment. Meaningful to say is, newcomer refugees, many newcomer refugees come with experience and education, and they struggle to get into their industry in Canada. So by meaningful, we mean supporting them in finding employment in the industry that they are interested in, or in the industry that they already have experience from. So we also provide entrepreneurship support, and the populations we serve are really newcomer, somebody who arrived in Canada as a refugee, or somehow arrived and they're refugee claimants in Canada. They're eligible to work, currently underemployed or unemployed. Underemployed meaning if somebody is an expert in engineering and they're doing in the same industry, but really a job that doesn't reflect their experience and expertise, so that we consider underemployment, and we support them to find a more meaningful employment. And of course, it has to be somebody who's actively seeking for employment, and somebody whose English level is level 5 and above. Again, so the idea is to find meaningful employment, you have to work on your English first. And the majority of the employers we work with require that level of English. So the way we work is we have a way of registering new clients. I'm happy to share the link later on. And so we have an intake and needs assessment department. We have a career readiness department, and we have the employment support department. We are a national organization, and so most of our services are done virtual. And so when somebody is registered for our programs, it's the intake team, the team that I lead, that reaches out to the client and tries to understand about their needs, their experience, and their expertise, and their desired industry in Canada, whether or not it's the same industry as what they have done back home. So we try to understand about their career experience and career desire, and we channel them to the appropriate programs. And so as part of our career readiness, we have something we call a career navigation report. So every time we understand about their interest and their expertise, we collect online resources for training, whether long-term or short-term training that's more relevant to their industry, and we send them this report. We build their resume. We ask them to provide a basic resume, but we design that resume based on the needs of the employers we work with. And so, and we support them with, as you all I'm sure know, networking is one of the challenges that newcomers struggle in finding employment. So we have a mentorship program to mitigate that challenge. We match them with an expert in their industry, and that mentor provides guidance in the employment with career options and professional network. We also provide education recognition support with the WES, the World Education Services. Unfortunately, for this support, we are limited for refugees coming from 7 countries that are currently in conflict, or for some reason, universities in those countries are not able to send official documents directly to WES. And those countries are Afghanistan, Eritrea, Iraq, Syria, Turkey, Ukraine, and Venezuela. So somebody who comes from those countries, we support them to get their documents evaluated with whatever copy or scanned or physical documents they have. So this is, again, as part of our career readiness support. We do provide assistance with interview prep. We organize skill building workshops, again, industry specific. It's only limited to the IT industry, but we also provide little long-term training. So for example, this fall, we're launching a coding training, an IT coding training we call Hack Your Future. And so that will be launched in the fall. It's only limited for folks that are 18 to 29. This is due to our funders' request. But obviously, we also have the employment support. So once somebody is career ready, then we support them in finding employment, and we do that in a few ways. I'll summarize in a minute and a half. And so we work directly with hiring managers. So our employment support team directly targets the hiring managers in various industries. And every time we see somebody that's a good fit for the job requirement in that industry, we reach out to the hiring managers, to the HR, and we facilitate the process. Sometimes we organize hiring events. We also have an online talent pool where so many employers have access to. So we put the resumes there when they're ready, and the employers have access. And of course, we educate the employers about the challenges newcomers face, the gaps that they may see in their resumes, so that they are more receptive and willing to hire refugees. Without getting into more details, we also provide entrepreneurship support. Currently, we're supporting over 30 women who are interested in launching their business. We call that program Her Startup, and we're guiding them with mentorship, connections, and hopefully some of them will be getting funding. That's in a nutshell what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you. That's certainly a lot of things, a lot of services, and please, if you could share the links of some upcoming events, either here now or share them with me, and I will make sure to circulate them with everyone. Thank you a lot. And now, Olivia, can you also tell us more about W5 and what you do in Windsor? And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Yazan. And I guess there are a lot of services you have to learn this afternoon. So just give everyone a little bit of break. Please reach out your hand. Let's say 5. Okay, so I'm Olivia Brazano from the Windsor Women working with immigrant women. It's really a tongue twister. Please call us W5. So W5 has 41 years history. We were formed by a group of very passionate women. Back to 1981, this group of women found out a lot of refugee and immigrant women and their families were suffering. Although there were a lot of community service agencies, people are very dedicated, very kind to help them, but there are service gaps. So in the last 41 years, our organization has developed a lot of a grassroots program for this community. They need a language training, we provide a training. They don't understand how to recycle, a lot of people stuck with their cultural groups. We have those orientation information sessions, and our agency trying to acting as a bridge to introduce the community services programs to those newcomers. Also, we have another main pillar of services is for women's services. As a women agency, we actually not only help women, but also we help their families. So their children, their husband also come to our classes, access our employment services, come to our computer training classes. Those services are available for women and their families. The third pillar of our organization is the employment service. We understand when we help one person find a job, we actually change the whole family's life. So that's our main services in those three areas. Along those three areas, we also have other extension of services for newcomer youth, and for the seniors, and also for local residents who are from low-income families. So for the newcomers, earlier I have mentioned that we have those segment regular services, very similar to earlier those two presenters, language training, settlement services. We do provide child mending when the clients attend our classes, and also assess the counseling sessions. One more thing we provide is a mental wellness training and crisis counseling, especially for the refugees, just escape from the war zone. We do have immediate mental wellness and crisis counseling support for them. Women clients, we create a lot of activity circles. So not only we have those life skills training, computer training, and also occupational training, women-specific occupational training, but also we create like a knitting club, English conversation club for them, so they can build up their own network, break isolation. Employment program, because we are funded by Employment Ontario and also the IRCC, the Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada. So our program not only provides services for job seekers, but also we help them to access the training. We do have a government grants to help those clients to start off their job, such as if they don't have funds to purchase their uniform or pay for their gasoline to go to work before they receive a first paycheck. And also we deliver Canada Ontario Job Grant and other Ontario programs, and to provide somewhat financial support to compensate employers' contribution to train their own employees. And if you wanted to learn more about our services, such as income tax, such as the community hours for the high school students and the seniors youth, you can visit our website. Remember, we have 5 W's, so it's 4W, www.iw.org. I'll type it in the chat, but thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Thank you for all the services you're doing and all the work you're doing. We will talk more about that, and I want to hear the impact of COVID and how you switched online and all that. But next, we will also hear from Baha now. Habra is from the YMCA of Northeastern Ontario, and he's from Sudbury right now, in Sudbury. Welcome, Baha. And can you also tell us more about what the YMCA is doing in Sudbury?
Thank you, Yazan. Actually, thank you everyone for joining today and for having me as well for this informative webinar. I hope that everyone will get the benefit of this beneficial information exchange between the settlement agencies and service providers in Ontario. So mainly YMCA, Northeastern Ontario Immigrant Services, provides services for newcomers and immigrants regarding all, like starting from settlement plans and assessments, going to the coordinating language assessments. And this is the hard part here about the North. We just have one center for language assessments in the North, which is in Thunder Bay. It's about 13 hours even from Sudbury. I know like even those who in the South, they know that Sudbury is far away from them, about 4 hours, 4 hours and a half. But even though that are 13 hours from Sudbury is in Thunder Bay, we have the language assessment center that we coordinate our language assessment tests through us. It's through our center here. They came through the computers to let the newcomers do their language assessments to know to use it either for their citizenship or to join the link school. So this is some of the hardships actually that we have here. In the North, English conversation circles. This is one of the ongoing activities that we do for our newcomers and immigrants actually to connect with Canadians and at the same time to connect with other newcomers to practice English. It's informal English, let's say classes. It's more about like, okay, gatherings and having a talk. Also, we have at the YMCA Northeastern Ontario, our welcoming community activities to make sure that our newcomers and immigrants to integrate in the best way in our communities. So we provide these kind of welcoming community activities, like connecting them with the police departments, having tours there, firefighters as well, also going to the museums, getting them out, even like to know more about the Aboriginal people of Canada culture by doing like the annual powwow celebrations, having like booking a full bus of newcomers going there, and so like let them know about the culture of the Indigenous and Aboriginal people of Canada. Also, we had many other welcoming community activities just to make sure that the newcomers and immigrants, they don't find it hard, especially like I'm not comparing now the North to the South, because South more opportunities, maybe more people there, but here the retention part is the hardest and challenging actually part of the settlement process here in Sudbury, because we see that more refugees and immigrants, unfortunately, they tend up like just traveling and going south. That the hardest part for us, that we make sure that the newcomers and immigrants feel more comfortable, feel like, okay, this is their home. The integration process is easier for them. So as well as we provided before, like many activities for the newcomers, for like in cultural perspectives. It's like we for those who likes the sports, we hosted like many of FIFA World Cup before and Champions League, like watching parties, things like that, just to make sure that we have this part there for engagement in the community. Tax filing, walk-in clinics as well. We provided that every year in like from February till April. As well as the study groups for citizenship test, and as well as the information about the citizenship pathways, which is how to apply, how to like going through these. These are all ongoing sessions that we are providing to our newcomers and immigrants. The financial as well the management information sessions about many aspects in the community, how to rent, how to open bank account, how to deal with financially, especially for newcomers and immigrants. We know that this is very important part in their settlement process, and how to adjust with the Canadian culture. So these are ongoing activities and information sessions that we provide for our newcomers. Also, we provide very unique programs for our newcomers that we have developed during the last 5 years, which is one of them is the intercultural ride along. I don't know if you heard about that. This is something that we provided in accordingly, like in the corporation, in collaboration with our universities and colleges in the north, with the police department. So we will provide, like we were providing this opportunity for any newcomer who is interested to go on a ride with a police officer and to let them know the real experience of what is policing in Canada. How, like, just this was a win-win, say, like actually a program for newcomers and immigrants, and at the same time for the police officers and police department to know more about the culture, to have these cultural exchange information. That it was very successful, very beneficial. Unfortunately, for the COVID period, it has been cut, and we started to work more on testimonials, videos for those who have participated with the program, hoping that this program will continue, as we are working on it right now to see when is gonna this continue this year. So also we provide several services about for all let's say immigration categories, starting by visitors, students, international students, foreign workers, refugees, and protected persons. These services including like filing their guiding those categories, and assisting them in filling in their immigration papers, guiding them through the legal aid by referring them to community agencies, helping them with the settlement process as any settlement agency do actually in Ontario. For the Ukrainians as well, we had something special for them, like bus passes and gift cards, money gift cards that has been donated accordingly with the Sudbury Food Bank for every family that arrives to Sudbury. Also, like creating a Ukrainian committee to take care of the cultural part of for the newcomer, for the Ukrainian newcomers, as well as the translation part. We have also a limited fund for that part, for any newcomer or immigrant that needs to be their documentations to be translated. So also in the last 2 years, we have added to our immigration and settlement services 2 unique programs, which is the first one, which is settlement worker in the schools, and then which is, I know many of the settlement agencies in the South, they have it already. And the other one is the mental health outreach worker, and the housing, housing support worker. So these are the 3 programs that we have added to our actually services at the YMCA, to make sure that we are including all the aspects of the settlement and immigrant services here, and to make sure that we provide the best services that any newcomer and immigrants needs or acquire in Northeastern Ontario. So also, if you need any more information, I would be sharing our link for the YMCA in Northeastern Ontario. So, and any questions, I will be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Baha. Yeah, please do share the link. And like that was really nice to hear that you organize like such social activities. That sounded really interesting. Oh, thank you. And yeah, we will move to Teresa. If you can tell us more about from our perspective as OCASI and service settlement providers, like what are those tools and like how can people benefit from them, whether in urban or rural communities? Like, yeah, give us a background. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Teresa Polikov. I work at OCASI, which is the Ontario Council of Agencies Serving Immigrants. I will try to limit my acronyms because I know we're not all among service providers in this session. Brief overview, as Yazan has mentioned, we work together. OCASI was formed in 1978 as a collective voice for the immigrant and refugee serving sector. We have over 200 member organizations across Ontario. So we do try to represent and lift up our member agencies as best we can and support. We do, as an organization beyond the membership, we do have various capacity building projects along with policy and advocacy work. We have, and what I'm here to talk about today, our newcomer information and orientation websites, specifically the 3 websites that are bilingual. We have Welcome Ontario, which is for service providers, private sponsors, and the sponsored refugees. We have settlement.org, which is a newcomer focus website for anywhere along the settlement process, as it doesn't end the day you get your citizenship. It's an ongoing process. Newyouth.ca, which is for newcomer youth. We also have information partnerships and tools that the government sites don't necessarily have, and they likely won't due to their mandates. So we're able to share more broadly the types of services and explain in more detail. I will share those links. Oh, I see Yazan was already doing it. I had something already prepped here. So this is I have my email address, the OCASI website, and our, I don't know why it went twice. I'm sorry. But our information website. So these websites are available in English and French. The établissement.org is a Francophone website. So it's not a direct translation. It's actually geared towards the Francophone community. And I think I'll be able to talk a little bit more about it as we move along, but our aim is to take the online users from our website and direct them to the brick and mortar locations that the service providers here offer, either virtually or in person now. Thankfully, we have more options, but our goal has always been to support and direct appropriately, because we know not everyone's able to make a 9-to-5 office appointment, and thankfully others are getting more flexible. But for their pre-planning and their early days of arrival, sometimes it's just nice to know you have a trusted friend to refer to for information, and that's what we like to try to be. So that's my bit for now, and we can move along with the rest of our webinar.
Thank you, Teresa, and yeah, thank you for sharing those. Your list is much nicer. I was just like copying the links. I would love to hear more about how that like plays out for different communities. So let's start. We'll talk about this later, but now I want to like hear more back to Dawit and Martha, if you can address like basically the first part is about the change of the services from in-person online and what is available online. So Dawit, if you can tell us like how did that like the switch to an online environment affect the accessibility of the services you provide, and like from your perspective or like in general, what you feel like about the settlement services, how did that change, and how did the accessibility of those get affected by that?
Thank you. So Jumpstart Refugee Talent, when it started, it was only in Ontario. So 2016, 17, 18, it was only in Ontario. So at that time, services were mostly provided in person, and obviously there was a virtual aspect to that as well, given that the majority of the employers may not necessarily be in Ontario. Some employers outside Ontario were still working with Jumpstart to hire newcomer refugees. So there was already an online aspect of that. But since 2019, the organization has become a national organization. So we do have offices now in Alberta, in Calgary, in Vancouver, BC, in Quebec, in Montreal. In Ontario, we have in Toronto and in Burlington. And so we are a national organization, and we serve anyone and everyone really to the best of our ability, right? So while it's easier for us to serve somebody in BC, in Alberta, Quebec, and Ontario, we also provide newcomer refugees in other provinces. As some of our services may not be possible, especially our mentorship program. We encourage our mentors to meet the mentees in person. And so, and our colleagues try their best to meet with the mentors as well to really create a good match between mentors and mentees. And so, but for our credential evaluation, for example, they could be anywhere and we would still serve them in those provinces that I mentioned, whether they are in urban areas or in small rural communities, we still serve them. Most of our services, all of our services, I can say, are now virtually provided. So as I said, it was already a virtual process in the making before COVID. We became fully virtual during the COVID-19. We still continue to be virtual while we started organizing in-person events. And if anyone is interested in coming and meeting with us in the offices we have, we also invite them and meet them. So yeah, our services are fully virtual. Anyone, anywhere can be served as long as they qualify for our services.
Thank you. And Martha, I know also you've been, there has been a change for you and like switching to online, and like, obviously there are things that you cannot provide online, and like what has been the most challenging in that switch in the last like 2 years, and how you had to mitigate services to online?
I think this is quite a complex question, because I think the kind of like most obvious thing that's challenging is the tech from both our end and the end of the newcomers. Of course, you know, if you're delivering services and programming online, you have to have sufficient connectivity and equipment to do that well. And then, of course, folks who are accessing it would need similarly access connectivity and devices. And of course, many newcomers do not have the resources to access those things. We are in a time where the cost of living is steadily increasing, and people are having to make decisions about what they can afford, what's important in that way. So that's definitely a huge part of the challenge, and it has been a huge part of the challenge. I would say, in terms of something that like, I joined the 519 during the pandemic, but knew well of their programs and services beforehand as a community member and also someone working in the settlement sector in Toronto. And a really important part of a community centres programming is, of course, developing and fostering a sense of community. And I think that is incredibly hard in a virtual context. We all gather as humans around food, around like warm social spaces, and that helps to develop a sense of belonging and community and like grounds people in a new place. And it's really, really important when providing services and support to newcomers, is providing space to feel grounded, to feel connected to community, to break bread with other people. And of course, no one could provide that. And the food piece, I think, is huge as well. Like, to us LGBTQ community in Toronto, newcomers in Toronto, people who are accessing income support through ODSP and OW, subsist on incredibly low incomes. And when accessing services, the provision of food is really, really important for people to stay healthy, to stay well, and to be able to focus on service provision. You know, if you're hungry, you can't focus on something very well. So that specifically as well, food access, I think was like quite a devastating part of not being able to provide on in-person programming.
That's yeah, thank you for this. Like obviously, like yeah, there are things that cannot be done online, and like some things were improved by the virtual reality. Like some things did decrease, or like became harder to do. So yeah, like I want to hear from everyone actually, like all the key speakers, and what has been the most successful online. I think that we shared some of like from my, like what I heard, like that has been successful. The employment programs have been successful online, and like I want to know more about what has been more successful online in contrast to the challenges. So Olivia, in your perspective, maybe?
Well, I would like to address the language training first, as very successful during the pandemic. 2 years ago, when the pandemic just started, it was a big shock for the whole community. A lot of individuals, service providers were not ready to take such a big turn and for such a long time. For our language training students, especially the literacy level, you know, the people on the street are always, whatever you say, they say yes, yes, or good morning. They only can engage a very, very basic language interpretation, language communication. At that time, you know, to teach them and transfer all the services, classes online, to use Zoom or use Facebook, Brightspace, all of those tools were very difficult. Not only difficult to train them because of their language skills, but also the number one problem is they don't even have access to the electronic devices. Our organization actually took 3 strategies and trying to help them to move along. First one is we apply for different funding. We are also trying to seeking for the community donors. So we got some loaner computers or give away second-hand electronic devices to help those families. When we called our students to fill out this application form, we have a majority of our clients who wanted the electronics devices. Actually, for the family, they have more than 5 family members just have 1 electronic devices, which is usually the cell phone. And remember, our agency, majority of the clients are female. So in some cultural groups, the female, you know, the husband needs to go to work, will have the cell phone, the children need to go to school, will have the electronics. The last person will have this electronics actually is our clients. So we got those donated or loaner electronics in our hands, and we quickly distributed to them. Now resolved the hardware issue. Software is the next. So we provide one-on-one setup and also 5 days one-on-one tech support. Meanwhile, the computer training. So all of those one by one, you know, the three services we provided. And guess what? In this September, when we returned to our language school and we sent out a survey, even from our literacy class, only 1 student wanted to attend a class in person. Majority of our students all adapted to the virtual classes, wanted to attend the classes online. So I think that was a big successful. We do have employment services, and during the pandemic was also very successful, but I think that's due to the network. We have a local employment Ontario service provider networks, and we were trying to put efforts together and help those employers who desperate need the job seekers. And meanwhile, especially the young job seekers, very inexperienced and then don't know where to looking for a job. So I think the network it's definitely contributed to our success during the transition.
That's great to hear, and I've heard a lot, and from my personal experience from the people around me, that English learning was particularly difficult during the pandemic, and like online courses are very difficult to attend. So thank you for this, for making it easier. And there's something I wanted to ask actually. I want to ask you, Teresa, about the considering that also that shift to online, like have you noticed any like change or increase in the number of users, and like do you feel that affected the way that people are using those platforms?
Okay, yes. Well, for us, we've always been online, so there was not a need for a shift. Just the people behind the scenes had to make the shift. And thankfully, most of us were able to do that fairly seamlessly. We did notice initially a drop off on our user traffic, mostly because of the shelter in place. Nobody was able to come to Canada, so why did they need to look up anything about Canada? And a lot of our traffic does come from overseas. But as the borders opened up, our traffic went up with that as well. But as Olivia is mentioning, the pivot to online meant a lot of agencies had to start offering things online in order to meet their targets, which was great for us because our events page that we offer, agencies can post their events for free on our page, and it goes into social media, what have you. And it's a place because not everyone's able to update their own websites or get the traffic. So our website has last year had combined, so between all three of the major newcomer websites and the bilingual side of them, it was 4.1 million users. Wow. So we did see a lot more people posting events. My colleague who does the facilitation to post them online once we get them had said it's the busiest we've ever been. We hit our annual target with every month. But in turn, that means there's more content out there for newcomers to access, which is a win for the agency. It's a win for the newcomer because they're stuck sheltering in place just as much as the rest of us were. And it allowed them to explore options that they might not have otherwise had time for. But again, it kept driving traffic to our website. So for us, we saw the dip initially, but it's picked back up to where we were probably pre-pandemic almost. But definitely the type of traffic we're getting is a little bit different, which is interesting, and we have yet to start mining that information.
Thank you. That's actually that reminds me of also something, speaking about settlement.org and Welcome Ontario and all these platforms, that what we're trying to do also in OCASI is to share more across our platforms and to collaborate more in the sector to share useful resources and events. So if anyone here have those resources or would like to share anything in future, please let us know. You can contact me or you can contact Teresa, and we're always happy to help. So thank you again, Teresa. I wanna ask another question now about, so like in right now, as we navigate through like our way out, hopefully, from the pandemic, but like it's still gradual. Everyone is moving to hybrid models. So like I'm interested in learning your perspective on what do you think that will continue to be provided online. Obviously, we're not going back fully to in-person. So yeah, that's for everyone. If everyone want to chip in, I don't want to point. Yep, go ahead, Martha. Thank you.
So we've noted that the provision of online services and programs has effectively made programming and services more accessible. On the one hand, when it's the only option, it creates barriers for certain individuals, but having it be an option actually makes services and programming more accessible. So we see that in terms of the distance from which people are accessing our programming. So people who might otherwise have a very long and costly journey to get to us are accessing our services. And because of our focus serving to us LGBTQ community, our programming, particularly our programming across the board, is relatively niche, is for a very specific demographic. And there aren't that many large-scale to us LGBTQ serving organizations. So lots of people are connecting to us, and pre-pandemic that was a lot of people traveling a long way, and now it means that people who might have had a long and costly journey can connect online if they have the resources and ability to do that. The access is also, the increased access is also true for folks who might have difficulty traveling for other reasons. So for example, mobility issues, or people who are single parents or parents with children. We're finding people who are just connecting, opting for virtual programming and services because it just makes it a little bit easier for them to engage. So we certainly won't be totally moving away from it. And in fact, we find hybrid, as in a session that's delivered concurrently online and in person, works very, very well in a certain context, particularly with information-focused programming. When you're sharing information, people can sit and take that information in from wherever. And also small group discussion works pretty well. So our English conversation circles are hybrid, and that actually works pretty well in a hybrid delivery context. And then also having programs alternate between the two allows people to connect, and say if someone is unwell, means people can still participate even if they're not well enough to find their way to the center. So we will definitely continue doing it, and there's lots of benefit to it, and I think it increases access and reduces barriers for particular.
I completely agree, and from my perspective in ARI also, it would be impossible to get this number of people in one place and have this conversation, and people from across Ontario if we're doing this in person. So there is definitely an added benefit for the sector. This is where we bridge the gaps a bit and improve our collaboration. So thank you, Martha. Anyone else would like to add anything about that before we move to the next part? Yep, go ahead, Baha. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I would like also to collaborate on the idea of going to virtual. This was the hardest actually step that we encountered during the pandemic. We had a huge actually decrease in the number of clients accessing settlement services in Sudbury, and that's actually let us go to and seek for other ways how to accommodate this change, this huge change. It's not only about the technology. Some of the immigrants or the refugees, some of them, they are illiterate with technology, and some of them, they have zero English actually level to communicate even. At the time, we are already struggling with English ESL classes that we don't have in Sudbury. So ESL classes for newcomers, we don't have it. We just have LINK that is just for protected persons or permanent residents. So that was a huge actually fence there that we needed to work around. So during the first quarter, I think we were developing the methods of going online using we were not even allowed to use Zoom because of the confidentiality with the organization, and so we were stuck with certain technologies that the newcomers, they are not even familiar with. That we needed to started this educational piece for the newcomers. So that was something that we dealt with. We went to the online version of providing these
services for us, like a settlement agency. Most, or let's say 90% of the demands of our newcomers are preferred in person. So no one will prefer just an online for settlement, like maybe an employment, applying for jobs, sending resumes, like getting assistance, which is virtually is fine, but certain things in the settlement process, it won't work unless it's in person. It's one-to-one, doing the needs assessment, doing the settlement plan for the newcomers, and especially for those who are also coming new, like as a newcomers to the city, that we need to take care of their needs, for either like finding furniture or finding like their basic needs, like for their initial arriving in the city, that we needed to be in contact. And then we lost that piece there, that we were actually struggling with for the whole period of the COVID. Unless I told you, some of the newcomers, they adjusted with the way that in the virtual mode. Some of them, they preferred not to, and believe me, some of them, they needed to apply for work permit. Let's say they waited for 1 year, 1.5 years, until we get back to offices in our hybrid mode to apply for their work permits, because they don't even have the money to go to consult with immigration consultant or immigration lawyer. So that's the piece there that we have struggled a lot with. We changed even like our websites to accommodate more like virtual communications between like the newcomers and immigrants, and ourselves as service provider. We get into that, but I won't say that we covered 100%, as we heard like from as a success stories about like moving to the virtual from some of the organizations like OCASI and W5. Even like with Martha, she mentioned like the like advantage of being hybrid, which is, I agree 100% with that. The hybrid that we had the advantage of that those who are even like either parents that they have kids to look after in the at home, or they are the moms, let's say, that they have to watch after their kids. They would prefer more the virtual sessions or the services, other than those who are in person would like to do that. So we now develop this hybrid mode even in the office. So we are having like 4 days in office, one day at home, hybrid mode. With our services, it's the same. It's always open. Even if we are in office, we had some virtual meetings with our clients, especially that we are providing services for communities around Sudbury that is far away from us, like let's say some of them 5-6 hours, some of them 7 hours away from Sudbury in the north, that we are the only settlement agency there for them. So virtual like model for them was the best actually to assess their needs. On the other side, those who are the resident of Sudbury, they never were like get along actually with the virtual, and now we are busier more than ever with being hybrid and online and in person at the same time. So I just wanted to mention that for our experience in moving to the virtual and the hybrid model of like service provider in the north.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's actually, that covers a lot of my next question. Like my next question was like to tell us more about the settlement needs and priorities that are specific to rural communities and the challenges and gaps in that. So that was actually, yeah, a great summary of that exactly. And Olivia, I would also like to hear from you about the same thing. Like, what are the settlement needs and priorities in rural communities, how they're being met and how they're different? What are the challenges and gaps? Yeah, please share with us. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Yazan. And I just want to make a self-disclaimer because our organization W5 is located in the city of Windsor. So we are not really true rural. However, Windsor is not it's not like a GTA, not that big city. We don't have a subway. Last night, I did a check. We have 15 bus routes. And previously, we used to only have about 10, 11 bus routes. And also some of the buses in the past used to be 1 hour in duration to wait for next. When 2018, we had a big wave of international students, the bus was busier than ever, packed. Some people have to wait for 2 or 3 buses. And you can imagine if the duration is really long, that was very inconvenient. So I think I agree what Martha and Baha have mentioned, a lot of points of those needs of the services. I just want to briefly just talk about those. I think that there are one type is immediate needs. When they arrive to our region, what do they really need? Especially if only 15 buses, or they decided to live in the rural area outside of the city of Windsor. We have quite a few counties surrounding Windsor area until city of London. So usually the immediate needs is housing and food, as Martha talked about. Interpretation, definitely. And the virtual services really made it easy. We don't have to call interpreters at 2 a.m. because there's a new bus or someone took a taxi or carpooling, just come to our town. Transportation is another one. If for newcomers, imagine if you only have 1 suitcase, or you have to go to another country only with your cell phone and passport, or doesn't have anything with you. So you will need everything from the bed, from the dishes, cooking pot, shoes, clothes, everything. So without the transportation, it's just you basically have you just have nothing. It's it's a very sad situation. And also the clients from war zone, from refugee camps, a lot of them need immediate crisis counseling. So those are the immediate needs. Those are the needs that as soon as they arrive your community, within 24 hours, you got to figure out. And then we have a short-term needs and a long-term needs. The short-term needs, such as register their children to school, fund employment, fund long-term housing, attend language training, attend skills training. So those usually people needed within the first month. Of course, they have to apply for financial aid. They need to apply for social insurance number if they are eligible. And in a longer term, if it's not really desperate on their to-do list, they should attend settlement agency provided information sessions. They should meet the settlement counselors, virtual or in person, in order to learn what are the services. Believe me, I'm first generation of immigrant. There are a lot of services, wonderful services Canada provides to the newcomers I have never dreamed of before I even arrived in Canada. So this is something that the newcomers cannot just sitting in a place in the new country. They can think about, oh, they must have language classes. Oh, they must have a daycare. They cannot imagine what Canada can offer to them. So the info sessions actually will introduce the community programs and services. That way the clients can best utilize those already existing programs and to help them, make the next step, help them to truly settle in our community.
Thank you. Thank you, Olivia. And I know you have to leave soon. So thank you again for participating. And yeah, thank you for all the information you shared.
Thank you, Yazan. Sorry, I have to host another meeting, but I'll stay until 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So that covers what I wanted to ask about that, but like I wanted to go back to Martha and Dawid and ask you more specifically about, like, you both mentioned obviously that there are services that are accessible online, but what do you think that are the like particular things that are accessible to rural communities and that could be beneficial for them? Yeah,
I can go
ahead.
first. Yeah.
Sure.
So as I said, our programs are fully virtual at the moment. We're slowly turning into a hybrid model and to organize events in person. And so in Ontario, really anyone can benefit from our services anywhere in Ontario, rural areas. We have clients from London, Ontario, from Kitchener, from Burlington, and really other places in Ontario. So the only thing that's challenging is, for example, when we organize hiring events, recruitment events, we used to be doing it virtually. So what happens is we would organize an information session on Zoom, and then we would create breakout rooms and invite the employers and the employees to meet and to conduct interviews and so on and so forth. We value the human connection. So we're trying to keep the information session virtual so that anyone anywhere can participate and hear not only about our services, but also about the needs of the employers. And so the information session will be maintained virtual, but the hiring event, the interviews will be in person. So if somebody is not in Burlington or in the GTA, that may be difficult for them to travel. So that's the challenge we have. If anybody is willing to make the commute and travel, they can. Otherwise, that may challenge. We're figuring that out, whether to somehow keep it hybrid, but to conduct the interviews in a hybrid mode, that would be technologically difficult. So we're still figuring that out, but for now, we're hoping to conduct the virtual, the information sessions, both the Jumpstart information session and the employer information session virtual, and to conduct the interviews and recruitment events in person. Otherwise, all our programs are still available for virtual, and our trainings, for example, the Hack Your Future training will be fully virtual. Anyone, everyone can participate, and we consider that some of the participants in this training may be working, whether it's survival job or meaningful employment, but we'll make it in a way that anyone can participate. So it will be fully virtual.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone would like to add anything on that?
So yeah, folks across Ontario, welcome to access our online programming. In terms of settlement services, one-to-one support, I mean, that's relatively easy to access from anywhere in Ontario. We do restrict it to Ontario because of the kind of knowledge needed to provide support is obviously provincially based. And then program-wise, we have, like I was mentioning earlier, we are offering quite a range of programming that can be accessed virtually either kind of standalone, not standalone, but either virtual only events or events that are both online and in person at the same time. We do have people from various places, mostly Southern Ontario, but other places in Ontario also who access that programming. And the best place to find that stuff right now is Instagram and Twitter, like social media. But we will be launching a new website soon that has it's much easier to navigate for folks to find programming and sign up. Most virtual programming requires some kind of sign up. Just in order that allows us to know a little better who's accessing, but also means that we can kind of like reduce the risk of bad actors joining, as of course sometimes happens with public events online. And we want to make sure that people feel safe in the space and don't experience any abuse or harassment in the space. So the majority of our, as I said, the majority of our virtual programming does require some sort of pre-registration. But yeah, but people are welcome to access it from wherever they might be. They do not need to be based in Toronto to access it, but they really should be in Ontario, just so that we make sure that the information they receive is actually useful for them.
Great, thank you for sharing this. I wanna go back to you, Teresa, and also ask quickly. So it's almost 3. We will have about 15 to 20 minutes to open the discussion and take questions. So for now, I want to hear from you about Welcome Ontario, settlement.org. The other ways to find, like, what are the tools that we can use to find services in rural communities, and what are the differences between them? Are there any other tools that you recommend? Yeah, give us more, share more, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. So just a small background about the different sites. We have settlement.org. That's been our flagship website. We've been online since 2000, longer than Facebook. I'm very proud of that fact. And I've been with the project for 12 years now. WelcomeOntario.ca was created, rolled out November 2015 in response to the humanitarian crisis in Syria, alongside with the government's action to bring over large cohorts of sponsored refugees. And we quickly recognized that the private sponsors and Canadians in general wanted to give, wanted to support, wanted to help, but might not know where to start. And being the information hub online at the time, this was us, this is what we created. So it started with that, and now it's evolved to all sponsored refugees. It's different in that we try to keep that site small so it doesn't overwhelm a user. So for the private sponsors, there's information so they can understand the steps involved, the processes, that the journey that the refugees will take. The refugees can access the same information. At one point, we were able to have a translation budget so that, you know, give a sense of agency. These people can actually read and understand. And if they're not comfortable in English, we tried to target a few of those languages that were coming over at that cohort. Beyond month 13, when the sponsorship ends, we know that life still goes on. So settlement.org does overlap with the information, as a lot of the information on Welcome Ontario did originate on settlement.org, but it's for that particular audience with those particular supports and that structure. So for settlement.org, it's for everybody, newcomers, refugees, immigrants. If you're undocumented, you don't need an eligibility criteria to go online to access. You just need a website. The thing that makes us stand out from the government website with their filtered, curated list is that we include both funded streams. So the federally funded stream. So we have a services, and I'll put the link in the chat, but we have the Find Services Near Me, which is a mapping tool that we use to generate a local list by the regions. We've divided it up by regions so you can navigate that way. We get our data from 211 Ontario, so they've gone national 211, but it's community information and referral. They've been a foundation partner with us since the beginning for this information, so we can't update. This is another thing that was flagged actually in the chat with me. Some of the community information, we're still working out the new version of the site, of this particular tool. We had to redevelop it, but the language searches, all that information, what's available, what languages they speak, what hours you're operating, what services, your eligibility, all of that data comes from 211 Ontario. And if it's not in their database, it will not be in our database. So we are only as good as our data partner is able to be. So it is, the onus is on organizations, unfortunately, to keep that updated. And it doesn't always, sometimes it's an afterthought because we are all very busy. It's a side of the desk task that someone gets stuck with, and then that person moves on and everyone forgets until the next year when the email bounces and someone gets called from their community partners. But we understand that all this community information, if Southern Ontario is the great human experiment, we're all from somewhere else. More than 50% of the GTA is born outside of Canada. Regardless of status, that's the figure. So you're going to run into a newcomer. So everyone's going to have to wear that hat at some point. So we try to make sure that all that information is available. We've seen a cohort, not a cohort, I'm using that word too much, an onslaught of seniors starting to reach out because they got online. So they're asking, this is great information. It's not behind a paywall like those retirement websites. Where can I get this information from? So we know that we have to span the breadth of the settlement continuum. So that's what settlement.org aims to do. We have new youth, which is geared for youth, newcomer youth, 15 to 25, 30, but in a language and a topic area that they want. But our site has it all, from my PR card didn't show up, how do I get it? I had a new baby, will they be eligible for OHIP? How do I get an OHIP card? How do I file for a death certificate because my loved one passed away? The whole gamut, because you come from many different places where you know the structure innately, and then you move here and you don't, because you don't expect, as was mentioned, you don't know that what you don't know. So you don't know that there's a social safety net, that there's no shame and there's an open eligibility, so you don't have to struggle the entire way, that you can get certain resources. So we want to make sure that that will actually, help cover everything. So that's where we offer it in plain language. We write for the newcomer audience in mind, but with knowing that there's a secondary audience. So that's sort of the difference between our websites, is the one that has it all, and then the other ones which are a bit more focused for their audiences.
Thank you, Martha. And I'm realizing we're running a bit late, so I want to make sure that we take a few questions from people if there are any. There was one question that was in the chat box from Luciano Moro. Please, would you speak to the issue of newcomers not receiving their PR cards timely? How would settlement agencies assist for these documents to be expedited by Immigration Canada? If anyone would like to address that?
Yeah, I can just maybe give a hint, like settlement services don't directly actually involve in any way to address that issue, or to make a pressure on the federal government to process, or IRCC to process these kind of applications urgently. However, we always refer our clients to the member of parliaments of the regions to like to make a request, a formal request to IRCC in regards of the urgent process for their applications. Otherwise, you have to file a web form with your reasons why do you want it urgently, because otherwise you just need to wait as everyone is waiting, right? So if you don't have a good reason, why do you want it urgently? Is there a reason for travel, let's say, or something like that? So you need to provide that either with a web form through IRCC website, or to like just to provide a request through your MP at your location. So this is the best that I can answer this question. I don't know if my colleagues here can have any other options.
Thank you, Baha. Aziz asked that said it's not the lack of settlement and non-settlement services per se, but rather the complex and fragmented landscape of services that make access to services very challenging for newcomers. What have settlement and non-settlement agencies done to date to address this issue? I can, yeah, go ahead, Teresa, thank you.
I can try to address this one. I think a lot of us have moved towards, a lot of our member agencies have moved towards the no wrong door approach, meaning that when they come in, people get a needs assessment. And so that when they are there, that they can be directed accordingly. But you're right, if they don't know that that door is there, how do they know what service is available? I do constantly champion 211. It's the one place you can call and they have all of the same information. You can call them, you can text with them, you can chat online with them, you can just search their database. And the best part about talking with one of their specialists online is I have the same credentials that they do. They're trained in doing the intake and pushing a little bit more. So you're saying that you need a food bank, and then they'll ask some questions carefully. Does that mean, do you have a home? Is your job okay? Are you in a precarious situation? There's a little bit more probing that goes on to make sure it's a holistic referral. So it's not just, here's your food bank, thank you, have a good day. Some people will call back repeatedly asking for the hours and whatnot, but that's different. They self-advocate, this is what I want, this is all I want. But knowing that there's something else and someone's listening and they don't have a time limit, they're not a call center that has a 2-minute capacity and off you go. They will sit there and they will follow up. And they also have a language bank that if you can't reach, if you can't speak in English comfortably or French comfortably, a lot of their staff are multilingual. If someone on staff speaks that language, you'll get put through to them. If they don't, they can call back at an appointment time with an interpreter on the phone for you free of charge. Mm-hmm. So that is a service that they offer across the province. They're available on the phone 24 hours a day, but the interpretation might be during business hours when the interpreters are awake.
Thank you. Thank you,
Sorry,
Teresa.
Teresa, can you just repeat that last part about the interpretation? Who is providing that?
211 has access to an interpretation bank, and they have interpreter services. So it does take time to,
because we struggle a lot with this part in our region with lack of interpretation service.
I mean, they can't do an interpretation for a settlement session, but if you're on the phone and you need that referral to know what the program is and what the eligibility criteria to make sure you're going to the right place, they can access that and have that available. So we do highly recommend that everybody sort of connects with their local information agency.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. And also, another question from Ajmal. I'm interested to know about the coordination and joint efforts of the resettlement agencies and Canadian government to ensure the economic inclusion of new immigrants. What are some of the programs that are there to ensure the immigrants are aware of the opportunities and can equally benefit from them?
I can contribute in that. Like in our region, we have a collaboration with the city of Greater Sudbury, the local immigration partnership office that is responsible for the development of the immigration development and business development, economic development, business for the city. So they make sure to have this connection between the settlement agencies and the city for the best of the community. Like as maybe some of you know that we have our unique rural northern immigration pilot that it has been set up just for the northern rural northern parts of Canada, across Canada, and that partnership, I think, it's a unique way to show like the desire from the city or municipalities to include the settlement agencies in a one team to make sure that all these programs from the government or from the from the federal government or from the provincial government to be addressed and to be articulated correctly on the ground with no conflict at all between the agencies. And if there is anyone maybe can add more on that, it's this is our here experience with that for to address this issue actually.
Thank you. Anyone would like to add anything on that? Thank you. So if there are no more questions, I would like to wrap up. Sorry for exceeding the time, but this is like there's a lot of information to cover and a lot of things to say. So thank you for your patience, and thank you for joining. Thank you for our key speakers again for all the resources and information. I will leave my email also in the chat box if you want to contact me. And yeah, that was a great webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Yazan.
Thank you, Zen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.